Yo, what's up, residents? It's your mayor of Dangerville? What? Sorry. What's up, residents of Dangerville? It's your mayor, Alistair, back once again. That's me, with a tier ranking list. And today we're going to do the MonsterVerse. If you don't know what this is, basically I'm going to rank each of the MonsterVerse films and TV shows on this S to D tier list. This isn't an objective system by any means. This is purely based out of personal opinion. You know, I love all of these films, so don't get offended if your S tier thing I put in C or D. Right, we're going to go through it from year of release. So obviously the first thing we've got is Godzilla 2014. The thing that started it all. There would be no MonsterVerse if it wasn't for this film. I love this film to death. Anyone that's been with this channel for years would know that 2014 is one of, if not my favorite film of all time. Gareth Edwards is one of my favorite directors. I love his style. I love the music, the cinematography, the weight to the monsters, the way they kind of represent the Titans as these forces of nature, and that they represent Mother Nature and, you know, all these different natural events like, you know, tsunamis and typhoons, earthquakes. It's so good. You know, it's not flawless. None of these films are, but out of pure enjoyment and what I get out of it, I get the most out of 2014. So for that reason, I'm going to put it in S tier. I just love everything. I just love the cinematography, the music, the directing, the acting. Oh, it's so good, but I might be biased. Next up, we have Kong Skull Island, which released in 2017. Now, this was really what was going to solidify how the MonsterVerse would be going forwards, whether it would be more serious or more of a comedy. Obviously, we got this blend of kind of like these godlike titans mixed in with the comedy, and that's kind of what it has been since then. So it is a really important film, and I love so much about this. The music, you know, the needle drops, that Vietnam War music is just so good. It's got possibly the best cast of any MonsterVerse movie. I mean, who can beat Sam Jackson saying, "Hold on to your butts"? You know, out of pure quality, Skull Island is probably, you know, up there with 2014, but out of pure enjoyment. But, you know, I'm a Godzilla guy. Godzilla's my boy. It doesn't have Godzilla in it. So personally, I don't get as much out of it than, you know, some other people would. So I'm going to put this in B tier for now. You know, objectively speaking, I think it's a fantastic movie, but, you know, I don't get as much out of it as, you know, some other people would. But don't let this fool you into thinking that I don't like the movie. You know, this movie is what influenced me to make a Vietnam War movie when I was in university, and it was a massively influential film for me, so it does mean a lot to me. But, you know, out of pure enjoyment, it goes below 2014. Now, next up, we have what quite a divisive film with Godzilla, King of the Monsters. It has the biggest gap between, you know, critics and audience rating that I think the MonsterVerse has ever had. This movie has amazing cinematography, some fantastic kaiju visuals, and one of my favorite shots out of any MonsterVerse film, which is where you see Godzilla's eyes glowing on the reflection of the building, and then he just like crashes into Ghidorah, and he just go flying, and there's bricks everywhere, and it's so good. That's so good. And the music, oh, it's so good. The music makes me orgasm every time I watch this film. Bear McCreary's score is easily the best part of King of the Monsters, and this film was easily my favorite, you know, theatrical movie-going experience, because I watched this film in 4DX, and, you know, the seats were shaking, and there was water splashing in my face, and smoke, and flashing lights, and it was so good. Nothing's been able to match it. Nothing's been able to beat King of the Monsters as a cinematic experience. But after certain rewatches, you know, the cracks have kind of formed, and I've been able to see through them, and I just can't let go of that stupid gonorrhea joke.
Ghidorah, the one who's many.
What?
She said gonorrhea.
Huh?
Ghidorah.
That joke easily like knocks this film down a star for me. It's just so stupid. You know, there's nothing as cringe-inducing in any of the other MonsterVerse films as, I think she said, gonorrhea. Shut up, get out of here, Sam Coleman. But yeah, I'm probably going to put it in the same tier as Kong Skull Island. a bit up because obviously it's got Godzilla in there, and I think it does a great job at making the monsters feel like these gods that were worshipped, thousands of years ago. And since this film, that's kind of been how the monsters are represented, as these ancient gods in this unknown land. So it's a very important film for how the MonsterVerse's lore has been developed. But it's just Michael Dougherty's writing just isn't very good. So for that reason, I'm going to put it in B. I love it to bits, but there's just a bit too many issues with it. And next up we have Godzilla vs. Kong, that came out in 2021 during an god-awful pandemic that, crippled us. But this film came out at the perfect time, which is towards the end of it, when people were allowed to go out to the theaters again, and we were craving, that blockbuster. We were craving some big, stupid, dumb film that we needed to get out all of our trapped emotions, that we'd been keeping in ourselves. Which is a lot of angst, a lot of pain, and we needed to get that out with big monsters fighting each other. And that's why this film is so important. It really paved the way for other films to come back to the theaters, and and it kick-started the industry back going again. So it is a really important film, and I think it actually is a really good film. It has, in my opinion, the perfect blend of this science fiction fantasy with some of that serious tension that 2014 perfected. It's still got that 2001 Space Odyssey music with it. That's that stuff that you associate Godzilla with, or at least in the MonsterVerse. And I think it combines that really well. It's got so many iconic visuals, like Kong floating, pointing at the rocks in the anti-gravity zone. God, the whole Tasman Sea section where they're fighting and Godzilla climbs up on the aircraft carrier and Kong whacks him in the face. That stuff's iconic. That stuff is already going down in history as, one of the top moments in the Godzilla franchise, and I think it does a really good job, setting its place in history. Important film, important time, great visuals, fun writing, is actually funny, doesn't have any stupid gonorrhea jokes. So for that reason, it's probably my second favorite of the MonsterVerse. I can watch that film over and over again. It's so good. But will Adam Wingard's second film, Godzilla Kong: The New Empire, be as good? Well, you'll find out in just a second. Next up, we've got Skull Island, the Netflix anime, which, it wasn't really anything, was it? It just kind of came and went. It had some good ideas in it. I think there was a good episode with one of the island girls that Kong's really good friends with, then she dies, and it kind of helps us understand why Kong is so protective of Gia. So episode 7 of the show is really good, and I like the Kraken, but the rest of it is just nothing happens. Nothing of worth happened in this show. It doesn't even feel like it's part of the MonsterVerse. There's no references to Kong Skull Island, there's no crashed Hueys, or I'm pretty sure there's no actual storm surrounding the island. It just feels like, I don't know, they didn't care, or they didn't have enough budget to make it feel connected. But it was quite a disappointing show, which is a shame because the animation team, they've made some great stuff. They had such potential with this to make it more adult themed, a lot of blood, a lot of gore, do stuff you can't do on these theatrical releases. But instead, it felt more childish. It just felt like it was for kids, which is fine. It's fine to make stuff for kids. You can branch out your audience, but if I was a child, I wouldn't be that impressed. So I'm going to put this in D. It's probably the worst addition to the MonsterVerse yet, because it just doesn't do enough with it. It came and it went, and no one really talks about it, and it's probably not going to get a second season, which is a shame, because it could lead us to places that are interesting, but where we are now, not really. And now we have Monarch, which came out at the tail end of last year, coming up to the beginning of this year, and this was really good. I think this has so much promise as, a series. We were introduced to some fantastic characters like Lee Shaw, Kaiko, and obviously Bill Randa, and we got to see them kind of creating the organization of Monarch, and that stuff is where this show really shines. It's so good when it's in the period pieces set during the 50s. This is the kind of show that helps establish and expand a universe. It makes it feel more real and, fully developed. The Skull Island anime did nothing to expand the universe, but this, it actually showed us how Monarch, the Titan hunting organization, was actually created. Sure, some of the characters were a bit annoying, like Kate and especially May. May was just so, headache inducing. She was mind numbing. It got to the point with that character when I thought she was dead and I went, oh, thank God, yes. No, she's alive! God, no! So it's, you know, it's a mixed bag. But overall, I really like the more grounded tone. It kind of brought it back to 2014 in a way. Yet it helps establish the universe and showed us that the Hollow Earth has actually got more depth to it than we thought. So it is really interesting, but I do think it's let down by the modern day characters and the fact I don't think we got enough monsters. So that stuff was just, you know, a little bit disappointing. We had like several episode stretches where there was just no monsters, and that's just kind of not acceptable for a MonsterVerse show. So for that, I'm gonna pop that in C, so that's just below Kong Skull Island, but ahead of Skull Island. I really enjoyed it, and I think I had a great time with it, but they could have done more with it. But I'm still really hopeful for season 2 of that. And finally, we have what I think most of you have probably come to see, which is my ranking of Godzilla Kong: The New Empire, the latest film that came out just over a week ago now. So it's basically a baby. And if you've seen my review, you know I had a lot of great things to say about this. It has some great visuals. The Scar King is such a good villain. I like the Godzilla's evolved form, and I really like Kong's emotional story. It does have this kind of biblical vibe to it, with how Kong has to free his people from oppression. You know, it kind of mirrors the Book of Moses. It's actually really interesting, but I think it is flawed. I think some characters just aren't given enough time or attention. Gia, which was probably the best character in the whole MonsterVerse, doesn't really do much with Kong, and her dynamic with Kong was probably the best part of Godzilla vs. Kong. And in this film, they had, what, like two sequences together, so that was a little bit disappointing. Some of the action scenes were so amazing, but you know, that last one in Rio, it just felt so rushed and kind of blurry and a bit messy. It didn't have any weight to it. You know, there's no scene that stands out to me like, you know, 2014 or even King of the Monsters with the, you know, the gravity beams that go everywhere from Ghidorah. You know, everything kind of just blurs into this mess of blah, 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 action, 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 everything's moving. Apart from the anti-gravity fight, that stuff was good. That was so good. Seeing Godzilla like float around and hit stuff with his tail because he's a good swimmer, that's actually really smart, and I really like that. But again, there's some things I didn't like about it so much, like the music was kind of uninspired. You know, I really long for the day where Bear McCreary comes back and brings the original Godzilla themes back, because that new Mothra theme was just like, kind of like shit, to be honest. But overall, I had a really great time. It's probably the most fun MonsterVerse film there is, but it does kind of sacrifice some of that quality and some of that, you know, extra time it needs to develop its atmosphere and its kind of world. But I did really like it. I've seen it, what, 3 times so far, and I plan to watch it at least another 2. And one of those times I need to see it in 4DX. If you've seen it in 4DX, let me know what it's like in the comment section and prepare me, because I don't think I'm prepared for that. But I'm going to put this in B, just ahead of Godzilla King of the Monsters. So there we are. We've got a full tier list ranking of the MonsterVerse, for at least from my personal opinion. In S tier, which is first place, we've got Godzilla 2014, my personal favorite and one of my favorite films of all time. In A tier, which I think is a really good film, we've got Godzilla vs. Kong, an important film that came out at the right time, and it's just got the perfect blend of fantasy but kind of like grounded as well. It's just such a good collection of everything the MonsterVerse has kind of built, and kind of outputs it as it's just like wonderful fantasy science fiction experience. And at the top of B tier, at third place, we've got Godzilla Kong: The New Empire. Now, when I watch it a few more times, it might go up, it might go down, because obviously it's just so new, but I had a great time watching it, and it just made me smile like a little kid. It was just so good. And on fourth place at B tier, we've got Godzilla King of the Monsters, which is just a fantastic cinematic experience, but, you know, some things let it down, like that stupid gonorrhea joke. It's just so dumb. Why did they write that? It's just, ugh. And at fifth place in B tier, we have Kong Skull Island, which I think is an objectively great film, but personally, I enjoy it less than the other Godzilla films because it doesn't have my G-Man in there. And at sixth place, at C tier, we have Monarch: Legacy of Monsters, a really great show, and honestly one of the best science fiction shows of recent years, but it's just not as rewatchable as those other films, and I think they could have, you know, done a lot more with it, but I am really excited for season 2. And at D tier, we've got the most useless MonsterVerse project, which is the Skull Island Netflix anime. I did enjoy it somewhat, but I think it just doesn't add anything to the MonsterVerse, you know, as a whole. But I'm glad it exists, and, you know, there are some cool things we got from it. So yeah, there we are. Hey, ranking. There we are, ranking 2024 MonsterVerse ranking. And now, hold on a second, we've got the ranking from the one and only Jacob.
What's up everyone, Jacob here. Figured I'd sneak in real quick, not let Al have all the fun here. So here's how I'd rank the MonsterVerse movies in their own rights. The Netflix Skull Island show gets a D. Plain and simple, follow the damn lore more. Speaking of Skull Island, let's talk about the movie. I give that one an A. I'm a real fanboy for that original King Kong Skull Island story, so really anytime we visit the island, I'm naturally gonna love it. Next we have the Monarch TV show, and I give that one a C. I really loved 70% of the show, but that other 30%... And now this next one might be a little bit controversial to some people, but I'm giving Godzilla King of the Monsters also a C. Now that doesn't mean that it's bad, just out of all of the MonsterVerse movies, this one makes me feel the least amount of feels. Godzilla vs. Kong gets a B. It's the epitome of a good overall monster movie. And we're gonna finish off with a crazy take here. I give both Godzilla 2014 and Godzilla x Kong The New Empire, I put them into the S tier. These movies are polar opposites. And I do have to watch The New Empire more times to be able to accurately judge it, but right now, it's right there on that S tier with the 2014 movie because they both just, I don't know, they both hit hard with me. They both left me smiling when I first watched them in the theaters. And I feel like these two movies represent the little fandom war going on right now. You got those who want the uber serious, realistic take on the MonsterVerse, and of course you want the WWE all-out crazy monster brawl. Alright, that's enough. Go listen to Al some more now.
See, that was my tier list for the MonsterVerse films and TV shows so far. If you want to see me do a tier list on any other things, let me know in the comment section down below. Be sure to subscribe and stomp the notification button to become a resident of Dangerville today. I've been Alistair, and we'll see you residents in the next one.